Hello everybody and welcome. While fighting the golden hippopotamus from Elden Ring's new DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, I was thinking to myself, wow, I would rather drive my head through a brick wall than fight him again. And then I thought I could make a video off of that. Since then I've had the fortune and misfortune of beating all the bosses from the DLC, and today I'm going to rank them on how fun I think they were. In this video there are going to be major spoilers for the boss fights of the DLC. There won't be any narrative spoilers because I don't really know what's going on, but there is your warning if you want it. With that, let's get started on the worst boss in the DLC, that being Ancient Dragon Sennesax. Sennesax is akin to an unfashionable Nazi, with the only good part of a bad thing being reduced to nothing. The only reason dragon fights aren't insufferable due to their large health bar is because you can actually attack them. Not Sennesax. Every single one of Sennesax's attacks have an AoE aftershock that damage everything underneath him, meaning you have to dodge every attack no matter what. So, good luck hitting him at all. Well, at least I can see his attacks. Well, guess what? No, you can't. Thanks to one camera being on his head, and the other being in Uzbekistan, no matter what camera you lock onto, neither will help you damage him. There's not even a feet camera, so good luck trying to lock onto anything at all. It's just the craziest decisions in the fight, which just left a 15-minute, terrible, boring attrition fight with an enemy with unreasonable amount of health for the amount of time you actually have to damage him. After wiping a 15-minute run where I just barely got him to half health, I searched up how to actually kill him, and every single person said summons, ranged magic, or ranged spells. But I'm not doing that, so I just decided to keep slamming my head against the wall for another 40 minutes until I realized I can just summon my horse and act like a schizophrenic and just run around him. This fight is beyond annoying or jank. It's straight up an insult to the player and a disgrace that FromSoft thought that this was actually balanced. Oh my gosh! Suck my Next up, and I'll keep this quick, are the two new base dragon fights, that being the Ghost Flame Dragon and the Jagged Peak Drake. I don't like these boss fights. I skip most of them in the base game. I have Jagged Peak Drake slightly above Ghost Flame Dragon because it's easier and it means I get to spend less time in these fights. They're not difficult, they're not fun, they're just a health bar tank that you slowly whittle down. Next up, we have the whole reason this video was made, that being the golden hippopotamus. When you're fighting a dragon and he winds up an attack, that attack can be seen throughout his whole body. His leg raises, he slows down his walking, something like that. That's not the case for golden hippopotamus, as he almost exclusively attacks you with his head. Now, this wouldn't inherently be a problem if you always had sight on his head, but due to the way he moves around, his head will just sometimes randomly clip into your camera, which can make it difficult to see what he's actually doing. Even then, the attacks aren't really that good anyways. He has a head slam, which is fine, but looks like all the other attacks. He has a bite, which sometimes adds a second bite at the end of it, which is too rare to consider most of the time, but can just randomly hit you. He has a head like Buck, where he just kind of launches you into the air. And he has a grab, where it's a continuous hitbox on the ground, which is an easy dodge, but it's just kind of boring and hard to punish since he does a spin at the end of it. The issue is with the first phase is there's not really any creativity. After one or two attempts, you realize what every single attack is, and it's slightly discernible from the other, but it's not like a gratifying feeling from learning the attack. It's just, oh, this is the bite with his head, rather than the slam from his head, rather than the grab from his head. Everything is the same, and it doesn't really feel like you're doing anything other than just wailing at him. And if you can count the number of attacks on one hand, it's not a great fight. That being said, the second phase really pushes it over the edge and makes it just not terrible. He starts with this raining needle attack, which isn't great. It kind of just pauses the fight, which isn't really fun. The slams, where he throws the needles out, have better timing and are rewarding. And the side spin, where he also throws the needles, is probably the best attack he has, with a reward for both good positioning and timing on the dodge. I wish the first phase took some inspiration from the second phase, but overall, not a terrible fight. While I did enjoy my fight with Romina, Saint of the Bud, I can't really speak on it very much. I did kind of fluke my way through it on the first try. That being said, I thought the attacks were cool. The jump slam was cool. The butterflies were cool. Her sword plus the tails kind of added a really dynamic feel because you had to look at both the two heads of the centipede and then her sword to see if there's any follow-up. But other than that, I don't have much to say. I kind of wish it was a little more difficult so I could have more time with the boss, but I did enjoy my 4 minutes that I had. I'm not going to speak on the Dancing Lion too long because, to be honest, it was a long time ago that I fought it. What I will say is that I think, despite the design being quite inspired, the boss fight, at least the attacks, aren't really that interesting. The different phases do add that little X factor, and it is a really cool idea to have essentially 3 phase 2s, but I don't think they're unique enough for it to really feel amazing to fight against. But let's go ahead and start with the first phase. First phase is fun. Bites are, well telegraphed, fun to dodge. The grab is really cool because it kind of fills in the opposite of what the bite would have been. So if you're just trying to dodge the bite, you're not actually looking at what he's actually doing, you will get caught by the grab, and that is quite cool. The breath attacks are a little boring. It kind of pushes you away. You can get up close to him, but it has kind of a weird hitbox since there's a hitbox from where it comes out of his mouth and then on the ground as well. So getting too close, you can get hit. Apparently you can jump over the breath. I never did that. The twisting attack is super cool, and I think that's probably the most unique attack. But overall, not amazing, but a pretty cool first phase. And the second phases, again, are okay. I have some issues with them. The lightning phase, I think, is actually a downgrade. The lightning attacks on some of the attacks, such as the retreating tail attack, are cool. Kind of adds up a little secondary dodge timing that you have to memorize. But for the twisting attack that I was talking about, trying to dodge the twisting attack and then the random lightning, and then also try to get hidden is impossible. So it's best to just kind of run away and just spam dodge, which isn't really a fun strategy to do in the first place. The wind phase is pretty boring. I think the only difference are these 2 projectiles, one of them being a larger tornado, one of them being like 2 small vortexes. And then the ice phase is fine again. I think it was a good fight, but overall not too memorable, not super cool, but it is the first fight, and I think it did a good job at being the first fight. Scadutree Avatar is kind of hit or miss for me. When I finished the fight, I genuinely thought it was terrible. With the blessing of hindsight, I realized that it's actually quite good, with a few exceptions. The first 2 phases have interesting attacks, except for one, which I will get to in a second, and the entire presentation is really cool. Having the boss respawn twice is really surprising and was cool when that first happened. The new phases add enough attacks to be fun, but aren't too different to force you to have to relearn the entire fight just for each phase. That being said, phase 3 is kind of dumb for one main reason, and that being the 2 explosion attacks. The first one is dumb, but at least a little reasonable. The issue with this attack is that he just explodes. No questions asked. I know there's a consistent timing, but that's it. There's a small sound, a small change in the light levels, but overall it's just a game of memorization. It gets worse with this second explosion attack, however, where in the span of about 5 seconds he explodes 4 times, all of which have the same lack of windup. This caused me to wipe twice deep into phase 3, which was really annoying. Now the last attack I have a problem with is this one, where he slams his fist into the ground and a bunch of brambles come up. I had maybe a 33% chance of dodging this attack, since each one of these brambles come up at a separate time. So me having a single time that I would dodge would cause me to sometimes get hit before the dodge and sometimes get hit after the dodge, which was just not very fun. I understand that, learning to be in one location when a boss starts an attack would be a cool learning curve, but he can initiate this attack from anywhere, so it's really hard to get in the same location. So I ended up just essentially rolling dice with this attack, and that really wasn't fun to have to deal with in each of the 3 phases. Scadutree is a fun fight that is unfortunately tainted from a few annoying attacks. Metyr does a good job of keeping you on your feet. At any moment, she can press you with a variety of differently timed attacks that force you to dodge at the correct time rather than just dodging whenever she moves. That being said, none of the attack pressure is really enough to combo you dead. Most of the attacks are fun. I like this side slam because despite being really fast, you can actually learn when it's happening and just feel satisfied to get. However, this kind of lack of pressure in conjunction with her low health bar makes this fight, unfortunately, pretty easy and flukeable. I cleared 4th attempt, not because I knew what she was going to do, but because I knew what she wouldn't do, and I could just heal off the damage she did. I enjoyed this fight, but I wish it was a little bit harder. I did say that for Golden Hippopotamus, if you can count the number of attacks on one hand, it's a bad fight. However, for Putrescent Knight, that's not actually the case. In his first phase, he has very few attacks, but the way they string together makes it really fun and engaging. The swing attacks, which are a little too slow for my taste, are very fun to dodge and find the timings for. He seems like he has a lot of combinations with them, and maybe it's just because he has the horse and he can attack from both sides, but he can do 3 of them, he can do 4 of them, he can follow up with a single slam, he can follow up with a double slam. It leads to every time he comes in, it seems like there's an opening, but he has one extra attack that really just kind of hammers it home and makes it hard to have that opening. Kind of like Rellana, but a little bit toned down. And then he has this uber goofy attack, which seems really hard to dodge until you find out how to do it. And it's not just a dodge timing, it's a positioning thing too. Because if you're too close to him when he starts, he will hit you with the first spin. And then the horse will be on top of the dude, and then it just gets really difficult to dodge. But if you learn how to position yourself for this attack, it's really satisfying and has a good opportunity for attack after he finishes it. Second phase almost makes this fight really good, but it lacks a little bit. The waves of fire are hard to really see where they start and where they end, so the dodge timings can be a little difficult. They also do really high damage, which I think is a good thing, but can be annoying sometimes. The throw attacks also just add another extra wave of difficulty. If he's far away, he could just throw his schmeat at you. You never know what he's going to do. The second phase really just fills in the dead spots from the first phase and leads to a really engaging fight. Even though this is a minor boss and quite a small boss, it's very fun and I had a great time. Despite me not really liking dragon fights, Bayle is the most non-dragon dragon fight in Elden Ring. Due to an attack that he has that bathes his belly in flame, fighting him face to face is better and also really fun. Despite this though, Bayle never really worked for me. I think his design is really cool and all of his attack animations are sick, but he seems a little thin. In the first phase, he essentially has 2 main attacks, that being a bite and an elbow that he flips between with like a dozen combos between them. These attacks are fine, but I think are too hard to learn for how simple they are. Learning the dodge timing isn't a matter of skill, but a matter of stone cold memorization. Since some attacks start the same, but depending on small details will end differently, which you have to memorize or else you don't have an attack window. His other attacks in phase 1 are hit or miss. The bite, slam, and tail whip attacks are fun and engaging, but the one where he just shoots fire at you is annoying. If you're moving in any direction when he shoots it, even if you start running, he will clip you with it. Second phase is a lot better though, and I would say actually easier. The graphics of this fight are beautiful and really help you understand why this guy is called the Dread. Despite the attacks being cataclysmic, they are very well telegraphed and can be dodged on the first attempt if you're looking carefully. Overall, this is the best dragon fight in the DLC, but definitely not in the whole game. Sennesax still holds that crown in my eyes.
Now then, if we pull this off.
This game is so easy! Let's go, baby! Let's go! Dude, I'm so good.
I know this is probably controversial, but I think Gaius was really fun. My strategy consisted of getting checked in the head by the first charge and then staying close to him to negate any further charges. Only after beating the boss did I realize you could actually summon Torrent, but I'm glad I did it the way I did. This boss essentially turned into a cage fight with a really fast version of a Scadutree Sentinel with some really fun moves. The double-double combo when both Gaius and the Hog are working together is fun to learn, and the base attacks have some fun chaining in them. The boss has a lot of openings that aren't easy to spot at first glance, which made learning him really fun. I will say a few things though. For one, his phase 2 charge does way too much damage, nearly killing you from full health. Secondly, the landmines he puts down are obnoxious and don't add anything to the fight. I also think, for the record, that the charge is pretty stupid. The way I did it just made it pretty much a non-issue though. I like his phase 2 and his phase 1, and I think this is a very solid boss. Midra is in desperate need of a phase 3. Phase 1 is quite easy, and while phase 2 ramps up the difficulty, it doesn't really go anywhere. I was expecting a phase 3 when I first killed him, and I was surprised when he just died. Again, like I said, phase 1 is good, but a little easy. The opening attack he does allows for a charge heavy, and since I ran the increased stagger on my flask, I always staggered him. After that though, there really isn't much danger in phase 1. The slash attacks are cool with the 2-2 combo and the 1-2 combo that are close enough visually to catch anyone who mistakes one for the other, and the spin combo is fun to learn the dodge timing for. Phase 2 starts with him doing a rising slam, which is just such a stupid attack. It's not really dodgeable unless you run away before he even starts doing it, and even then he lunges at such a great range that it's hard to really get a grasp of whether or not you're going to dodge it. I end up just full healing and then tanking him most of the time. Other than that, phase 2 consists of more flame attacks. All of his magical flame attacks, such as the double barrel shotgun to the face, are quite dodgeable, but not very easy to discern. However, he only uses these attacks if you're not in his face, so running him down is the best strategy. The flame slashes are also a fun twist on the old combo, making you not only have to change how you dodge them, because you have to dodge into him or else you get clipped by the flame, but he also gains an extra slash, so you have to remember that when dodging. One thing he does great though is his grab, which is well telegraphed, not overly lengthy, like all the other bosses, Hippo, Messmer, Horlu, I'm looking at you. And even if you dodge the grab, he still does a ground AoE after, which makes you still have to work for it. Overall, this boss is quite enjoyable, if a little easy. I think I am in the minority when I say that Rellana is an amazing fight. To me, this is what Millennia should have been, though a lot of people think this is just a worse version of Millennia. One of the main controversial factors is that there isn't any hit stun. If you try to attack her and she's winding up an attack, she will hit you. You have to respect her, even if she does an 8-move combo that you have to memorize. I find that fun, a lot of people don't. The first phase is overall very good. It allows plenty of room to heal if you know where to look, but it doesn't make it trivial since it still has some pressure from those ranged attacks. But I think the most fun I had with this is just the mental shift. There is no end to the combo. You always have to look for how she looks when she ends an attack. If she looks like she's down on the ground, then she probably has an opening. If she's still to swing her sword or has her hand up, she will hit you with something else. This really just makes you respect her, which is something that Millennia struggled with. If you wanted to, you could just jump heavy Millennia and she would die. That's not the case for Rellana. This just ramps up in phase 2, and let me just start with the visuals. Oh my gosh, they're so pretty. The moon, the flame, it looks so cool. I just love it. The combos in phase 2 actually get significantly harder, not only due to the increased pressure from backburns, from the flame slashes, but also because, if you can believe it, there are more attacks onto the previous chains, which makes you just really stressed when you're trying to look for the end of a combo to get one light attack out. The fire also makes you dodge towards her. If you try to dodge away, she will catch you in a bunch of explosions and you will die. Another great thing this boss has is the explosion attack. A lot of the times, like for Scadutree Avatar, it just explodes. Like obviously there's a timer involved, but you have to just regularly learn it. For this one, the AoE attack is really well telegraphed, and you can dodge it on your first try, something that's not really the case for, again, enemies like Scadutree Avatar. Overall, I love this boss fight. It's what I wish Millennia was, and they just did a great job with it. Radahn's difficulty isn't the main problem with this boss. Radahn took me around 6.5 hours to clear at Scadutree Blessing 15, and during that entire time, I was still learning new dodge timing and attack windows. This fight is extremely engaging and fun, but there is one flaw: unfair attacks. The only attacks I think are unfair are the single cross slash, which is nearly undodgeable, and then this quick attack, which you can combo into either a double-handed swing or a full combo. The former attack is annoying in both phase 1 and 2, since dodging it requires either pre-dodging it or being positioned perfectly for that single attack, which is just unreasonable to ask for when he can initiate the attack from like anywhere. The second attack isn't a problem in phase 1, but it is in phase 2. Due to the way he moves after the first swing, discerning each combo from each other, that either being the two-handed swing or then the multi-phase combo, is nearly impossible since your entire screen is covered with Miquella's hair and Radahn's body. If you guess wrong, you either get A, smashed by 2 blades, or B, combo to death. These attacks feel unfair, and on top of the rest of phase 2, it can be a little overwhelming. That being said though, this fight really pushes what is possible in a video game to the limit. Dodge timings and positioning are necessary for each and every attack, and fluking this fight is an impossibility. Once you memorize his attacks and learn his AI, you will be able to clear this fight, but it never gets easy. On top of this, the music, sound design, and visuals of this fight match its splendor, and it's clear a lot of love was put into it. I enjoyed almost every second of my 7 hours I was on this boss, but due to some imperfections, I can't say that it was the best fight in this DLC.
Let's go! Oh my gosh! Yes!
When I was doing my first couple attempts on Messmer, I thought it was unfair. You had weird change, fire that will clip your roll 100% of the time, and crazy damage. But as I learned the fight, you realize that the reason you kept getting clipped is because the dodge timing isn't enough. You have to know where to dodge to. A perfect example of this is one of his spins attack where he follows with a flurry of stabs. It's impossible to dodge this flurry unless you dodge towards him, in which case his entire attack becomes super consistent and just makes you feel great when you dodge it. An even harder example of this is the other spin attack, where you either have to position yourself correctly or dodge perfectly twice in both directions and timing in order to dodge it. This makes the boss super rewarding when learning the timings. Another way the game forces you into dodging correctly is with all the fire. Dodging away from Messmer during a string will almost certainly land you in an attack that spits fire, clipping you if you try to roll from it. This leads to a playstyle where constant aggression is not only effective, but necessary. The first phase reminds me of a better version of Radahn, since unlike Radahn, retreating is actually punished. The only problems I really have with phase 1 are both just skill issues. The first one is his grab. I think the grab is entirely too long, and I wish they just either showed it later or had some like mid-animation flash or something you could see to know when to start dodging, because he just can just run for a mile and then grab you just out of the blue. The other attack I had a problem with was these 2 slashes. I think I dodged it maybe 25% of the time. The other 3 out of 4 times I would just get hit by the first one and then iframe the second one and get a light attack off. It's not very fun, too slow. I wish they sped up the attacks to keep the same pace as all the other attacks. Second phase is great, but not as great as I wish it was. The snake bite attacks are really well telegraphed. Even if there's a lot of snakes on screen, if you use the same logic you would as if there was a single one, you can dodge them, and it just feels great to be able to see what's going on in a cataclysmic attack like this. The snake slam, though, is well telegraphed, but there's not really a point to dodge. You just kind of have to learn the timing, which isn't a bad thing, but personally I like, something I can just see and then react to rather than having to just wait for it to come in. Messmer also gains a retreat attack that's pretty cool. Looks kind of like the Dancing Lion one. And then this spin jump, which he just kind of adds onto the back of other moves. One problem I do have with this phase that keeps it from just being perfect is the fact that all the attacks from phase 1 are unchanged. He essentially just adds new attacks rather than having some more changes to other attacks, which makes you switch your mindset when you enter phase 2. Like, think of Rellana. I loved the fact that Rellana not only added extra attacks onto old combos, but had explosions that force you to dodge old attacks differently. This really just spiced up phase 2. It's not the case for Messmer. That being said, Messmer is a great fight, and I think is probably the best fight in the DLC.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. Almost into it. Almost into it.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like and comment if you want me to do the actual base game. I'm probably going to do New Game Plus, so I might get around to actually ranking those as well. And I hope you enjoyed. See you guys in the next one. Bye.